All right, everybody, welcome. Good evening, good late afternoon. We get a full house tonight. We tend to be pretty popular this time of year, so this is not a one-on-one session. But you're whatever you're worried about. I promise you, other folks are too. But guess what? You're in good company. That's what we're here to address those concerns, and you're gonna walk away an hour from now a lot smarter than you are right now. Um, Give us a minute or two, though. We'll do some quick introductions, a little bit of housekeeping. We can't do the AI things; those are compliancy things we're not allowed to do. Sorry. So I see some of those requests. So don't take it personal if we shut down those note takers and such. Lawyers, guys, sorry. That's coming. It's not my call, not Jason's call. Um, All right. So a couple things. Just let's just get the juices flowing a little bit here. Tell us where you are in the country, right? What state, what city, or the world. We are always very well represented geographically, and then it's always fun for us to hear what's graduating class year soon. I know we're talking primarily 26s, but I know we always have some go-getters here, some younger parents, younger families, maybe some kids that are families that are in college and want to make sure that we get it right this year. But yeah, as expected there.
Mhm.
Very well represented geographically. Mostly our 26s here. So we're well in it. We're in the weeds here, which is good because that's kind of the point of tonight, and I appreciate all the engagement here. Um, by way of quick introduction, I'm Matt Carpenter. I'm one of the founders of College Aid Pro here. I was just telling Jason in the green room, I'm in the Halloween capital of the world, Salem, Mass. That's one of our offices here. It's pretty lively this time of year. And I was just telling Jason, if you haven't done it for this time of year, it's worthwhile. It's worth the trek. I've been doing this for 20 years, almost on the dot here. So I share that just because I think it gives. I've seen it all, right? I've worked with tens of thousands of families. Any college you've heard of, I've had some interaction with them on the financial side and on the scholarship side. So again, I share that because I want to hear your questions, right? Because we probably have some pretty good answers, and we want to make this interactive. So even if you have a question that's not related to exactly what we're talking about tonight, ask it. Put it in the Q&A, not the chat. I know we said put all this in the chat here, and we will again, but put your questions in the Q&A. Whichever one of us is not talking, that's where we're going to be living. Um, so please, anything that's keeping you up at night, challenge us. Put it in there, and we will do our best to get your questions answered. You're in good hands, not just with my own experience, but this is Dr. J here, Jason Slone. Jason's somebody that I personally recruited. Other people on our team did as well, just because he's been an expert in the space in terms of subject matter expertise with all things financial aid, scholarships, etc. In addition to that, he has a background in the financial services industry. He's put kids through college. He has kids in college. He's a college professor. So he has all these different things that makes him unique, in my opinion, in this space. So Jason, say it in your own words, but that's why we thought you were up to snuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, most importantly, putting my own kids through. So I feel your pain, parents. I'm going to parents' weekend for my senior in college this weekend. I don't know how that happened. Just yesterday, I was in the seat that all these parents are in right now. Like, how am I going to do this? But you will get through it. I promise you'll get through all this. But yeah, my background, as Carp said, I've spent a lot of time inside of higher ed, inside of universities. I was actually a dean for 7 years at two different universities. I always joke I'm the former dean that spills the beans for parents, on how all this works. So you have a fighting chance against these big colleges that want to try to take all your money. So, but happy to be here. College A Pro is the best, and as Matt said, you're going to learn a lot tonight. Hopefully, it'll give you a little relief and peace of mind. I know it's a stressful time for everybody.
Yeah, and obviously the focus tonight is on the financial aid applications themselves, the FAFSA, the CSS profile, etc. But I'm going to start with just a little bit of context, right? Because we always try to do that. Like the obviously the FAFSA is important, the CSS profile is important, but it's a piece of the puzzle in the greater scheme of all of this, right? So I want to make sure. Jason, not the best picture of you right here, brother. I mean, I've
I
seen.
had better hair though. That wouldn't
Well,
have
I
looked
was going to
so
say,
much better in that
may
picture.
you be so lucky. May you be so lucky to look like our very own Peggy. Look, if you have not created your account, your free account with us already, do it right now. Don't wait another second. You want to know what these colleges are going to cost you. Who's going to give you scholarships? Who's going to give you financial aid? What are the deadlines? Who requires a CSS profile? Who requires a non-custodial? Blah, blah, blah. It's all in one place, guys. We get this question all the time. Where can we find it all in one place? That's what we created. So go to mycap.collegeaidpro.com if you haven't already. Do me a favor, Jason. Put that, I didn't tell you to do that earlier, but if you could dig up that link right now and just share that in the chat for anybody that um, has not created their account already. And by the way, I see that a huge percentage of you have already, which is awesome. So again, we're going to get into the nitty gritty here, the X's and O's. I think it's important to just recognize the emotional, psychological component of this, challenge of this, right? Something I say every day because it's true, and everybody on our team does as well. It's your kids and it's your money. Like, no kidding, you're freaked out. No kidding, you're overwhelmed. If you're feeling any part of that, you're in good company. I promise. I would be worried about you, as a matter of fact, if you weren't. So just again, a couple things here. So Peggy, you just saw her picture a second ago. If you follow along with us, you know her, our in-house fairy godmother of financial aid. She loves whales. They chill her out. She has her whale tattoos, right? But whatever your kind of whatever chills you out, she's trying to give you some motivation here to be like, all right, let's zoom out here as much as these forms and this whole thing freaks us out. Let's latch on to something that brings the temperature down a little bit. Take breaks. You don't have to submit these financial aid applications all at once, right? It's not a, one-time deal. Come and go as you please. You can save it and then, come back at a different time. If I already saw a couple questions like this, I already submitted the forms, whatever. It's okay. Like, look it, to be clear, we want to get it right the first time. So like I'm going to tell you the earliest deadline in this whole process, and it only applies to a very small percentage of people, is November 1st. Talk to us before you submit your financial aid applications if you haven't already, but if you have, it's okay. The FAFSA specifically is very easy to correct. The CSS profile is not as easy, as seamless. But the takeaway is if you made a mistake, it's okay. It's not, or irreversible. Like it is okay. So again, that's Peggy, but I'm seconding her. So before we get to the forms themselves and into the mechanics of the FAFSA and the CSS profile, I want to talk about some things that are really important in terms of how we are presenting this information. And again, if you've been following along, you know this. Some of this stuff might be redundant, but if you're new, these things that I'm going to say pretty quickly here are mission critical. Number one, colleges, and every college is different. You got to look at them like their own businesses because they are, right? The colleges are businesses that don't pay taxes, right? But any money that's in the student's name, they look at with way more emphasis than any money in the parent's name. Okay. So, to the extent that we can control, by the time we submit these financial aid applications, the FAFSA and the CSS profile, we want as little money as possible in the student's name, right? As opposed to the parent's name. Okay. So, even if it's something as simple as a retirement, or sorry, as a savings account, checkings account, whatever, let's say your kid's a great saver, they're industrious kids, or they've kept all their money from their bar mitzvah, their first communion, whatever. They got 10,000 bucks there. Not a huge number, but guess what? Colleges will look at that number with a lot of emphasis, a minimum of 20%. Okay, they think should come to them each year, right? So I'm just gonna, if I have a savings account in my kid's name, I'm gonna add my name onto that as a parent, so it's considered my asset, not the kids. And they're going to look at that with much less scrutiny, so to speak. So that's something that we want to look at. Now, a lot of parents hear that and they go, oh my God, I'm screwed. I saved in a 529 for my kid. That must be my kid's asset, right? We saved we worked our butts off and we saved $100,000 in a 529, and now all the colleges are going to think it's going to go to them. I got good news for you. You as the parent are the owner of that asset. The students are just the beneficiary. Okay. It is such an easy mistake to make, but it is mission critical, right? That you retain this. Okay. If you're a parent and you own a 529, you own that money. It is your asset, not the student. And that matters because it's going to make you eligible for a lot more financial aid than you would be if you report it as a student asset. Grandparent, even better news, guys. Even better news. The grandparents own that money, or the aunt owns that money, or if you're fortunate enough to have anybody outside of your household, your nuclear household, create a 529 for your kid, that is their money. The student is just the beneficiary. We don't have to report it on the FAFSA at all. Okay. Um, this is a surprising one, a disappointing one to a lot of people. If you own your home, right? If you own your home, and or a percentage of it, right? If you have a mortgage on your home, like I do, right? I don't know. I own it along with the bank here, right? But the amount of equity that you have in your home, a meaningful percentage of colleges consider that fair game, right? And I'm in a lot of ways, it's unfair to have these four logos on here. Miami, Syracuse, BC, NYU. They're not the only four schools that consider your the equity in your home fair game, so to speak. Right? There is a dozens. I'm sure over 100 colleges. These. I know there's over 100 colleges that consider equity in your home to be fair game. So again, in some ways, this is unfair to have them on there, but we like to just let people know that to be clear, these colleges that require the CSS profile, most of them, if you have some equity in your primary residence, they consider that in the same way that they do if it's in your checking account, if it's in your 529. So we want to know how the colleges that we're applying to, how do they conduct business, essentially? Do they look at all of our home equity, none of our home equity, some of our home equity? And those are kind of the three different tranches. Now, again, you don't need to know all of this, right? You just set up your account and just make sure you can look at with us. Okay, well, if we're looking at Tufts, do they consider home equity? What about Northwestern? What about UT Austin? What about the University of Michigan, right? Everybody is a little bit different, but you want to know the colleges that you're applying to, what's their business model, right? But either way, when we present this information on the CSS profile, we want to be strategic. We want to use the lowest defendable market value of our home as possible. We want to have the highest amount of defendable debt that we show on our home as possible to shrink the amount of equity that we're showing in our home, assuming that, again, a percentage of the colleges we're applying to are looking at that, right? And considering it when determining our financial aid eligibility. Business owners, okay? Now this is and by the way, guys, by the way, I'm glad I flagged this for myself here. You're not putting anything to do with your primary residence on the FAFSA. If you own your home, it doesn't matter on the FAFSA. Jason's gonna talk about that in a little bit more detail when we get into the forms, but your home equity does not go on the FAFSA, only on the CSS profile. Okay, so let's be crystal clear about that. Business owners, you see the FAFSA versus CSS profile. How's this treated? Let me simplify this. If you have less than 100 employees, you're not putting anything to do with your business on the FAFSA. They're going to ask you, what's the net worth of your business? What's the business assets on the FAFSA? They're going to ask you this. You're putting a zero. You're putting a zero, and you're not blinking. You're not hesitating, right? You're putting a zero if you have less than 100 employees on the FAFSA. Okay, so for the vast majority of you, we don't have to overthink it. We have less than 100 employees. When they ask us about our business on the FAFSA, we put a zero. On the CSS profile, it's not that simple. Even if we're just a sole proprietor, it's just us, right? We're going to have to put some specifics on that CSS profile, right, as it pertains to our business. But the takeaway, the headline, don't overvalue it. Don't be uncomfortable putting zero, right, as the value of your business. For a lot of businesses, right, the assets leave in the elevator every day, right? And maybe it's just you, right? So when you leave your office every day, guess what? That's the value of your business. It's zero. God forbid you get hit by a bus tomorrow. There's no liquid value of your business, right? So keep that in mind. And again, the headline is do not overvalue your business. So we're going to be a little bit redundant on this front tonight because I think this can be in an already complicated process. If you're a split household family, divorced and or separated, and by the way, these colleges do not see a distinction between divorce. You could have been formally divorced 10 years ago or never been with your with the other biological parent of your kid, right? Or you could have got informally separated 6 months ago. The colleges don't see a difference there. So long as there's two different addresses, right, and you guys are not together, they kind of put them in the same camp. And similar to businesses, similar to equity in the primary residence, schools that only require the FAFSA and schools that require the CSS profile in addition to the FAFSA usually treat these a lot differently. Okay. Let's start with the FAFSA because that's the easy one. If you're applying to a college that only requires the FAFSA, and you're in, again, this divorce separated situation, right? The only household that completes the FAFSA is the household that provides the most financial support to the student. Okay. To the student. It doesn't matter who claims the student as an exemption on tax returns. It doesn't matter who the student lives with. It doesn't matter who pays child support to the other spouse, right? Because, or the ex-spouse rather, because child support is a financial contribution to the other parent, not to the student. Whoever provides the most financial support to the student is the one that should complete the FAFSA. So, guys, you have an opportunity and oftentimes to be strategic here and use this relatively new rule to your advantage. Do it. Take advantage of it. Okay. If you have the ability to do so. So, again, the household that completes the FAFSA, and there's only one. A lot of people get confused. We're divorced, we're separated. Both of us complete the FAFSA. No, only one of you completes the FAFSA. If you're applying to colleges that require the CSS profile, okay, most of them, there's exceptions, but most of them are going to require that CSS profile from both households in divorced and separated situations. Okay, you won't see each other's information, you won't complete the same form, you do not have to be on the same page with this, right? Um, but they will require that information from both households and from most colleges that require the CSS profile. Okay. Let me skip through these here. Okay. Last thing I'm going to do before we get into the forms themselves. Why should I submit these forms if I'm not going to qualify for financial aid? I'll go through these pretty quick. If you don't listen to our podcast, please do like us, follow us, listen to us. I had another colleague of Jason and ours, Kevin Murphy, on this week. We went through some actual case studies of families. We talked about a family that made over $1 million adjusted gross income, got need-based financial aid from Tufts. We talked about two different families that had a income of around $650,000, annually. They get financial aid from a couple of other private colleges. The point of me sharing that is to say don't disqualify yourself from financial aid. So many people say my neighbor makes this and they didn't get anything, and I heard that if you make over 300,000 you're not eligible for need-based financial aid. Don't do that. Don't do that. There's too many variables. Don't leave money on the table. Some colleges that give merit scholarships, right? Just scholarships based on the student credentials. You have to do the financial aid applications to be considered for those. We always use NYU as an example, right? Here's the slide here, right? That if you want to be considered for scholarships at NYU, you got to do your FAFSA and the CSS profile, regardless of your financial situation. If you want to negotiate, appeal is the appropriate word for more money with colleges. Most of them are going to say the first thing you need to do is make sure, let me check if you've submitted your FAFSA and if we're a CSS profile school, your CSS profile as well. Last one, federal direct student loans. If you want to borrow through any federal program specifically for the student, you got to complete the FAFSA, right? Even if you didn't need your kid to borrow, complete the FAFSA. They're entitled to $27,000 in federal direct student loans over the course of 4 years. Again, even if you don't need them to borrow, you don't want them to borrow, pay that off instantaneously, right? And they're going to graduate with perfect credit score, right? So, in short, guys, you're going to have to do some pretty good homework to tell me why you shouldn't complete these financial aid forms, kind of wherever you are on the financial aid spectrum, or lack thereof. And Jason, before I pass it to you here, and I will go in Q&A, just another reminder, everybody, because I know a whole bunch of people, jumped on after we talked some housekeeping stuff in the beginning. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A, not the chat. That's where we're living. All those are archived. You get them in the follow-up, along with the recording and things like that. So if you put a question in the chat, copy and paste it, put in the Q&A. We'll do our best to get there. I will tell you, we won't get to everybody tonight. It's not because we're ignoring you. It's we're outgunned a little bit tonight. So high
Yeah.
level. This is again our dear friend, our colleague, Peggy, fairy godmother of financial aid. Three commandments when it comes to financial aid applications: be honest, but at the same time, don't overestimate, and don't overshare. When in doubt, leave it out. Um, but Jason, I'll pass over to you, bud.
Yeah, I was trying to keep up as much as I could in the Q&A, and
You
I
did good.
misspelled. I was typing so fast I misspelled every other word, but hopefully people understood what I was trying to say. I swear I know how to spell. I was just going fast. But all right, friends. So yeah, the FAFSA is Matt said every school is going to require the FAFSA, and so let's talk a little bit about the logistics, the mechanics of it. It does go. It already went live, of course, went live on October 1st, and they're going to ask for your income from the base income year. But the good news is the FAFSA is now connected to the IRS, so it's a lot easier these days. You're going to approve a data retrieval tool where it's just going to pull over your income, and it's going to be for those of your class of 26. It's going to be your 2024 returns. So again, that's something to always keep in mind. It's always the prior year. And if you're in a divorced, co-parenting kind of situation, separated, it's going to be the custodial parent that needs to submit the form. That's again the parent who provides the most financial support. So there's potentially a planning opportunity depending on what the custody looks like and so forth. It's not always the parent who makes the most money and pays child support. Sometimes I've seen this a lot where one parent makes more money and pays child support, but the other parent's picking up the tab for everything, prom and travel ball and haircuts and clothes. And so it's really that person that's the parent that should submit the form. So the procedure, you got to get FSA ID, and your student's going to have an SAID, and use those to log in. Now, a little bit more about the contributors, okay? And so the student, technically, it's the student requesting the money, right? The student's going to be the student going to college. It's going to be their financial aid, but they're going to ask you as parents to contribute your information to this, all right? And so presumably for most families on the call, the student is going to be a dependent student, so the contributor is going to be a parent. And so it gets a little bit complicated on here on who is the dependent. So if your parents are married, remarried, or living together, and they didn't file married filing jointly, then both have to contribute. Okay. So again, if you did not file married filing jointly, so if you're married in the prior year and you did married filing separately, both have to be contributors to the FAFSA. So that's a little bit tricky if you're doing a married filing separately, which happens in cases like businesses or whatever. So if parents are married in the prior year and they filed married filing jointly, then it's only one parent has to do it. Okay. So if you're married filing jointly couple, only one parent has to be the contributor. And again, if it's a divorce or separated situation, only one is supposed to file. But if you were married in the prior year and filed married filing jointly, now you're separated, now you're divorced. Well, then you're going to have to separate everything out and enter the information, the tax information manually. And if you are in that kind of situation or these kind of situations, and this is confusing, you might want to reach out to us and get some help, get some guidance on how to do this because you don't want to mess this up. Okay. And so you're giving consent to the IRS, you do it once a year. And once you do it, it can't be revoked. So you want to make sure, again, talk to us before you do all this if you're concerned about getting it right. Okay, so how do you get started? Well, you log in with your FSA ID and you're going to click on Start a New Form. But make sure you do the 26-27 new form if you're a parent of a senior. You don't want to do the one from last year, 25-26. It's next year's form for next year. You're going to hit Start New Form. Okay, and then you're going to Do the student first. That's the most important thing, right? When you, there's going to be student and the parent. Always start with the student. That's our recommendation. Do the student first. So we click the student there. And this is where,
And let me just double click on that, Jason, because it's like it's I think most um households, right, how it works in practice, like parents are doing this for the students, are, at least leading the charge. So the natural tendency is like, okay, I have my FSA ID. I'm going to log into that. I'm going to do my parent section. Then I'll do the student. You can do it that way, right? It'll still work. The FAFSA will eventually get across the finish line, but it is so much easier, so much less clunky. You will bang your head against the wall so much less,
yeah,
right, if you do the student section first. So I'm just kind of doubling down on that point because
yeah,
it's uh that's the deal, right?
yeah. It's a great point. You'll see here in a couple slides because one thing when you do the student first, then you can invite the parent. It just makes things so much easier.
Yep.
So this will be the next screen you're going to see. This is where you're going to provide consent and approval. Okay, and so you're just going to hit that little blue approve button down there in the bottom right. You're going to see this screen. It's going to say, okay, we're securely importing your information. It's going to pull everything over at that point. You just got to wait, let it load. Doesn't take too long, usually, 5 or 10 seconds. Now, the next thing you're going to see up at the top there, you're going to see all the 6 steps that you're going to go through in the FAFSA. And the first one is going to be personal circumstances. And so for most families, none of these apply, but they could in some cases. So you want to just read closely what the FAFSA is trying to do is to determine and establish that your student is in fact a dependent and not an independent student. So it's going to ask questions: Are they in the military? Are they were they an orphan, ward in the court, foster care? Those kinds of questions. So just read those closely. But for most cases, none of those apply. So you're going to hit none of those apply at the bottom if they don't. Okay, and this is going to then it's going to move you on to the other sections of the FAFSA. So
And the only break in I have here is that, like, to your point, Jason, it's like unless you have a little bit of a unique circumstance, you're just hitting none of these apply. That's going to be the case for at least 90% of you, probably more. But there's some families where, hey, the grandparent is the one that is kind of raising the student, or there's been again one of these unique, maybe challenging circumstances that apply here. So I think the most, if you are a grandparent, for example, because we do get a fair percentage of those that is raising your grandchild, right? Kind of, and you're the legal guardian, but obviously not the parent here. You would check that, not the one just above the none of these apply. The student is a or was in a legal guardianship, right, with somebody other than their parent. And you want to check that because that'll make sure that the student is just considered, an independent student, and only their income and assets, et cetera, will be considered in their financial aid eligibility, and they won't be quote unquote punished, right, for your income and assets as a grandparent. So that's the only thing I'll flag there. Again, this is to Jason's point. For most of you, it's just don't overthink it. We'll check the last box, and we're on to the next. But if you do have a little bit of an unorthodox situation, according to you, you look a little bit closer here.
all right, so this is a one that can trip up a lot of families. It's going to ask for are the students' parents refusing to provide their information on this FAFSA form? The answer has to be no for the student to be considered for federal Pell Grant eligibility and most types of other types of financial aid as well. So you're going to want to definitely make sure that's checked as no, and it's going to be the default setting. So just make sure you're putting no on this dependency status uh, page right here. Okay. All right. And so next is when you're going to enter all of your colleges. This is usually what takes the most time, actually, when it comes to filling out the FAFSA, depending on how many schools you have. So as you can see, you'll put in a state, then the way you can search either by code, but for most families, they'll search, you put in the state, then put in the name of the college, and you can put up to 20 schools in here. Okay. So you can put up to 20 schools in the FAFSA. And when you're done, it'll send it out to all of those 20 schools. Well, you're probably wondering, what if I have more than 20 schools, right? I talked to a family this week and they had 29 schools the kids applying to. And I thought, oh my goodness, well, all right, this year, this is your life, go for it. But 29 schools, what do you do? Well, you would put 20 schools in there. You're going to submit the FAFSA. You're going to give a couple days for it to process. Okay, you want to go back in, check the summary to make sure it was processed, and then you can take out schools and put in your other schools. So in this particular family's case, they would delete 9 schools. Doesn't really matter which 9 they would delete, and they would add the 9 new ones and then resubmit it. So it is possible to do more than 20 schools, but you can only do 20 for the first round. Then you got to let it process, then come back in, give it a couple of days to process, come back in and add the others, take out some and add the others. All right, so you will be able to see how many schools you have selected. So if you got 11 schools, 15 schools, or whatever, it's going to tell you. And again, you can submit up to 20 on the first round. If you need to add more, you can let it process and come back in. Okay, next you're going to invite the contributor, which is going to be, in most cases, a parent. Okay, so on step 5, it's going to say invite parent as contributor. And so you're going to put in, mom or dad's email there, whoever created the FSA ID for the parent, and send the invitation. You're going to send that invitation. And then mom or dad, whoever, you're going to confirm there, yes, send the invitation. It's going to verify that's the correct email, and that's going to send an access code to the parent that they can use. They're going to accept the invitation. They can use that access code then to get in and do the contributor part of the FAFSA on behalf of the student. So that's what it's going to look like right there. That if you click on the link, you can see that that's going to be the access code. You want to jot that down, copy that link, so you can put it in to accept the invitation that your student sends to you. So make sure you copy that and save it. That's an important thing. Then you're going to review it and submit, and then you're going to start the contributor FAFSA and basically follow, basically the same process. You're going to log in as the parent, accept the invitation, and go through the same process there. Okay. And the signature, you're going to click down there at the bottom. Yes, I agree, and hit sign. And when you hit sign, it is submitted. Okay. So it's going to say then pending submission. All right. So when the student has signed and submitted, it'll say pending. It's not complete yet until the contributor does their part. All right. So that's when the contributors, the parents, get to log in and do their part. And then once everyone has submitted, you are done with the FAFSA, and you'll get that amazing little sign up there that says, congratulations, the FAFSA form is completed. So that's the process. That's the mechanics of how to submit the FAFSA. Again, start with the student. It makes it easier. Kind of go through each of those, enter all your schools, invite the parent, review it, sign, submit it, log out. The parent's going to go in with their FSA ID and submit it, and then you will be done. Oh, you're on mute. On mute, Matt.
You didn't hear those points? I was
That was the good stuff too, wasn't
just in my echo chamber over here. What? So a couple of the highlights again, just to reiterate, and again, at the risk of being redundant, I'm okay with that because too many people make these mission critical mistakes. So on the FAFSA, parents and students, we are not reporting our retirement accounts when they ask us about our investments. Okay, when they ask us about our assets, no 401ks, no IRAs, no pensions, right? No retirement accounts go on the FAFSA. If you own your primary residence, right? If you have some equity in your home, it does not go on the FAFSA. Obviously, it can get confusing. Well, why'd you talk about NYU and Syracuse and Miami looking at our those are CSS profile schools, not on the FAFSA. Okay, so very, very important that you do not make those really mission critical mistakes. And before I pass the mic to Jason again here, this is something that we everybody that is in the space has a different version of how they articulate the FAFSA versus the CSS profile. I'm going to steal kind of the talk track from my good buddy, another colleague of ours, Uncle Bill Rabbit says, look, you can get through the FAFSA with a couple beers, no big deal. CSS profile, we need a 30 pack, a bottle of JMO, whatever's your poison. Okay. Like when I hear people say, like, oh my God, a financial aid. By the way, I'm only talking to 21 plus here. If there's any students on here, which there shouldn't be, or you weren't invited, I'm only talking to parents. But the thank you for the emojis. But when I hear people say this, process such a nightmare. Oh my God, it's not worth it. Don't go through it. When I hear that, I go, they're talking about the CSS profile. Right. I think the FAFSA has continued to do a better job of making that a little bit more user friendly each year. If that's not your speed, it's probably still going to be a headache, but I think they deserve some credit in making in improving each year to make it easier. CSS profile is a fucking nightmare. Let's be
Mm.
clear. Right. This one's not fun. And again, couple hundred questions, nuanced questions. Um, I guess without further ado, Jason, kind of take it
Trick
away.
questions. I call them
Right.
fishing expedition questions. Yeah, trick.
That's right. Fishing expedition questions. Right. Right.
All
Uh,
right, so let's go ahead and jump into CSS profile. Again, several hundred schools require it. It's like FAFSA goes live on 10/1, so it's open now. A couple of big differences. As Matt said, you don't have to put your home equity and your primary residence on the FAFSA. You are going to have to put it on the CSS profile, but to make things even more complicated, doesn't mean every school uses it the same, but you are going to have to put it as an asset on the CSS profile. And again, you want to put the lowest defensible value. So you want to be honest, of course, but don't overestimate. This is one time in your life when you want your house to be worth as little as possible.
right. That's
So, if you're divorced and separated family, this is the other big difference. This is one of the other big differences, CSS profile and FAFSA. Whereas the FAFSA is only one, the custodial parent from a financial perspective. CSS profile, both parents are going to have to file. Okay, so you're going to have to contribute to the custodial parent's going to have to contribute to the student's account, and then the non-custodial parent's going to have to submit a non-custodial profile. Okay, now if it's a case where there's something going on where the non-custodial parent's no longer around, not in communication, or there's been some kind of, heaven forbid, terrible situation where they're not allowed to be involved or something, you can request a waiver for the non-custodial parent. But generally, it has to be pretty severe circumstances. They won't accept the waiver for saying, well, mom or dad's just not going to pay. That doesn't really count. They're going to still have to file a non-custodial profile. So, and business owners, lots more questions for you on this one around your valuation and oh my goodness. So if you're a business owner, highly recommend talking to us to get some help with this because it's easy to get tripped up when it gets around things like I said, valuation and expenses and what's on the returns and that kind of thing. So there's also some planning opportunities for business owners. That's the good news. That's a silver lining for even if not, year one, years two, three, and four potentially. So, but again, way more invasive, way more invasive. And again, you're going to do this. I should mention you're going to do this through the College Board. Okay, the College Board, your student's College Board account, which administers the SAT. So if your kid took the SAT, that's what you would use to log in. All right. So when you get through the very first couple of screens of the CSS profile, just demographic.
Jason, sorry, let me break in because I'm getting so many of these kind of repeat questions.
Oh
I'm going to
yeah,
stop
good.
Aaron for just a second here. And again, I know we said this at the top, and not everybody obviously was here right on time. As I would not be. But the how do we know, who's which colleges consider home equity? How do we know which colleges need the information from, both parents if we're divorced or separated? Again, I said at the top, guys, we got the cheat code here. So I'm going to put this in the chat, right? For those of you, and I see most of you already have an account with us, which is great. If you don't overthink it. If you take one kind of action item tonight, let it be this: set up your free account here, right? So you're going to know before you submit the FAFSA, you're going to know what your SAI is. Before you, when you submit the CSS profile, they don't tell you your SAI in the way that the FAFSA does, but you're going to know that, right? If you set up an account with us and any college that you want to see, did I consider home equity? How much did they require the CSS profile? Do they require the non-custodial profile, right? Everything is in here. If you want to know what any college is going to cost you, you just, put it in here. And you're down there in Georgia, right? Pretty good school down there, right, Jason? Right? So Emory College, pretty expensive, but guess what? They're excellent. What are you going to pay? We'll tell you exactly how much that college is going to cost you. When it comes to, again, the financial aid part of the puzzle, as soon as you tell us where you're applying, here's who requires the FAFSA, the CSS, the IDOC, the non-custodial, right? Line by line instructions through the FAFSA, through the CSS profile, so again, if you, I'm just flagging because I'm getting a bunch of questions that I know are from folks that don't have an account with us, right? So I just want to make sure that you all know what you have access to. So
Yeah.
apologies for the break in there, but
No, all good. MyCap makes everything so much easier for you parents. If you don't have a MyCap account, make sure you get one. It's going to save you so much time and headache having to go hunting hunting for all this information in one spot. So
Right.
definitely want to do that. But and also too, if you have complicated circumstances, feel free to reach out and book a consultation with us, and we can chat with you. So. All right, so you're going to get through the demographic information. That's pretty straightforward. That's pretty easy. And then you're going to enter all your colleges in there. Is what this looks like. You can search by the college name. It's actually a little bit more convenient. But one thing you want to pay attention to is a lot of schools have multiple, not just you don't pick just the college, but the program selection. So you can see like Cornell University. Got to be careful. Cornell University for undergrads is the third one. So the first one's the vet school. The second one's law school. You might want to make sure you click on the right one. There's a bunch of Columbia is terrible about this kind of stuff too. So make sure you pay attention to the right college/program that you're picking. Now, here's if there's any tip if there's anything take home message when it comes to the CSS profile, besides the stuff about home equity and divorced parents and whatnot, it's this one. There's a whole bunch of questions on the CSS profile that do not have to be answered. If it's required, obviously you have to answer it. But if it's not required, those are optional. And that means you don't have to answer those questions. All right. So, general recommendation, it's generalization. There may be uh, exceptions to this, but if it's not required, you don't have to answer it. Right. Makes things makes things go a little bit faster, and they don't need to know more than they need to know is kind of my philosophy about this, right? They're all on a fishing expedition. But and if you by the way, if you the FAFSA is free, but there are fees to the CSS profile. But if you mark yes to any of these questions under parent benefits, like you get any kind of means tested benefits, or your AGI is under $100,000, you're going to get a fee waiver. So make sure you read those closely. And if any of those apply, you click them, because then you get that fee waiver and you don't have to pay the fees for the CSS profile. So don't make sure you don't skip that one. All right, here's a good one. This one trips up a lot of families. Okay, they're going to ask you to enter the amount that you contributed in tax deferred pension retirement savings. This is like 401k, 403b, 457, these kinds of pre-tax tax deferred retirement savings programs plans you have at work. What they're asking for is how much you contributed in the year 2024. Okay, not how much you have in there total. It is how much did you contribute in 2024. Okay, so you want to make sure you don't overestimate that and put in the total amount. You got $1 million in a 401k, but you put in 23k last year, it would be 23k, not $1 million. And make sure you don't make that mistake. That trips up a lot of families. Okay, and if you have a health savings account, you can put that information in there. Alimony, it's going to ask you lots of these questions. So again, notice these are required questions, so you're going to have to answer those. But just read them closely to make sure you don't make any mistakes on the required questions like these. All right, so here's a good one too. Now they're going to ask you some, I call them fishing expedition questions. They're trying to fish for more information here. Like they're going to say, um, how much do you expect to receive in 2025? How much do you expect to make? How much, these kinds of questions will show up on the CSS profile. And again, be honest, but don't overestimate, right? If you're like, well, if everything goes well, I'm going to get a big raise next year. You don't need to tell them that. You don't want to say that, because that can only hurt you. Okay. And so again, be honest, but don't overestimate. You want to, if you don't expect a big change in your job or your income, put what you made last year, but don't increase it because that can only hurt you. Right. Anything you want to add to that, Matt? That's just what.
I mean, it's like, look, they're looking for you. They're inviting for you to bet on yourself, right? This is
Yeah,
not the time to do it, right? This is, and again, in all seriousness, we don't know what the hell's going to happen next year, right? Even if we really expect we're going to get a bonus, we really expect we're going to get a raise, we really expect we're going to, you know, go beyond our quota. That can only hurt you. So our general rule of thumb is don't put more. At a minimum, don't put more than you're making this year. We just because we don't freaking know, guys, right? And guess what? It can hurt you. You can get hurt by projecting what you expect to make in subsequent years. So don't make that mistake.
absolutely. Okay, again, we mentioned before, we'll say it again, we'll say it again, we'll say it again. On the FAFSA, only one parent has to file, but on the CSS, it's both. And you want to, of course, follow the FAFSA definition of custodial parent that should match, right? Whoever the custodial parent is. And that's who you're going to submit as the custodial parent for the CSS profile. But in addition to that, the non-custodial parent is going to have to file a non-custodial profile unless you get approved for a waiver. Okay, so just make sure that's all in alignment there. Okay, and so it will ask some questions. You want to make sure you have that information ready. And you get some questions like, what if I don't know? You can put unknown. It is okay if you don't know if you put unknown. But you are going to get some questions about, when was the separation? When was the divorce? What is the X? What's the occupation employer? How much are they going to contribute? That kind of stuff. You can put unknown, or, in the case of how much will the X contribute. In many cases, it's zero. Okay, we talked a little bit about this before. Sometimes, one parent is like, I'm sorry, I'm not helping. They still have to file the non-custodial profile, but you can put down that they're going to contribute zero, something like that. And if there is a written agreement, there's something you could share potentially for a waiver. But if it's not, then you don't have to. You can say no to that question too. Okay, parent assets. Now they're going to ask about parent assets. Again, this is one of those be honest, but don't overestimate. They're going to ask you, what do you have in cash, savings, checking at the bank, and that kind of thing. And remember, they're going to ask for current value. So if you're filing on October 30th, you're supposed to report kind of what's in there on October 30th. So my joke is make sure you pay all of your bills on October 29th if you're filing on October 30th. Okay. And then it's going to ask you, besides the cash that you have in the bank, do you have investments? And again, that's going to be outside of retirement accounts. You're not going to want to put in any retirement account information here. They're going to ask for that in a different section on the CSS profile. Then it's going to ask, do you own any real estate beyond the home? So this would be a second home, vacation home, rental property, those kinds of things. It's going to ask you, do you own a business? Okay. And it's going to ask you, do you own a farm or part of a farm? And if you click yes to any of those questions, you're going to get more questions because they're going to ask you to give the details about the extra real estate. Where is it located? How long have you owned it? What did you pay for it? Are there renters? It's going to be a lot more questions. You click business, it's going to ask when was the business incorporated? What kind of filing is it? What is the primary? It's going to have all kinds of questions. What's the valuation? Blah, 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 blah. All right. So if you have any of these extra asset kind of complex circumstances, you want to pay close attention to this. Again, you want to be honest, but don't overestimate. And we can help you with that. I would recommend talking to us if you have any of those kinds of situations so you don't get any of those, you don't do anything wrong there, make a mistake that costs some aid. All right. Okay, so here's an example of what I'm talking about for real estate. What's the market value of the property? How much do you owe on the property? Notice market value. I think Matt said earlier on, we always want to do the least defensible value. I mean, if you got the Redfin, Zillow, there's a bunch of different sites to look up values. Maybe you have realtor friends who could give you some comps in the area, something like that. But as long as you can come up with the least defensible value, that should suffice. You definitely don't want to overestimate and inflate the value of your properties because that could hurt from a financial aid perspective.
And businesses too, right? I mean, if you're a business owner, and a lot of people feel weird and uncomfortable about putting zero when they ask for the value of your business. But again, I said it earlier, for most people, specifically sole proprietors, like the assets leave in the elevator every day, right? So if those assets leave in the elevator and get hit by a bus or decide to retire the next day, there's no value to that business. So do not feel weird about putting zero. And again, obviously, I'm oversimplifying and generalizing here, but certainly a lower value. And then getting ready to defend it. We welcome a conversation with these colleges. That's a win. That's kind of the first hurdle is to have open a dialogue, right, and have the opportunity to defend ourselves as opposed to them just crunching the numbers their way, and worse yet, us hurting our own case by by volunteering a number that is higher than it needs to be, right?
Absolutely. As a former dean that spills the beans, I'll tell you, all these schools are trying to minimize their discount rate. That's the jargon. That means they're trying to give you as little financial aid as they can get away with. So,
And
uh,
again, we're not, and that's just the name of the game, guys. Like it's like as somebody that's been on the other side of the desk, Jason, we just have we've seen under the hood of most of these colleges that they're not bad people. We have a lot of them on our team. They're not they're amazing institutions, right? And your kids are going to go to have great experiences with great degrees. But we're trying to play, let's make a deal here, right? So that's why we don't want to be naive with how this works. That's what we're trying to get at here, right?
Okay. Now, this is a great question. I love this one.
We got a lot of these, as we always do. We got a lot of these in the Q&A.
Yeah, this is good. All right. So, how much does PEG, student PEG, expect to receive from the following resources to pay for education experience from their parents? So, in other words, colleges wanting to know how much are the parents planning to pay for college next year? Okay. First of all, they're just asking you to estimate. All right. And second of all, this answer will not help you, but it can hurt you. Okay, so in other words, if you put in there, well, the college costs 90, and I guess we get no financial aid, we're willing to pay 90, and you put in 90K, there could be a chance that you're going to end up having to pay 90K because they're going to go, hey, you said you could pay 90K or something like that, right? So, just hopefully reading between the lines here. We always, put something reasonable, but, probably the lower the better. Can only hurt you. It's not going to help you to put more than you really want to pay.
And to the point of like having some, inside baseball knowledge here, we have some folks on our team that are, my friends, our Jason's friends, our colleagues that are at world-class institutions, and they look at this, right? And let's just say they say, one of these, I'm not going to name names, but one of these world-class institutions packages a family and says, hey, after looking at their income and their CSS profile and their FAFSA and their taxes, they should pay $30,000. Let's go see how they answered this question. If you put $40,000, guess what? You're paying $40,000, brother. Like you just cost yourself $10,000 a year. So that's why if we're gonna miss on a side, it's gonna be low. That's and again, I
So
that's all I'll say.
yeah, okay. And then it's going to ask for some student resources, scholarships, grants from other colleges, universities. Employer's going to help pay or whatever. Again, this is another one of those that's required, but don't feel weird about putting a zero in there. Don't feel weird about putting zeros because maybe you're applying for scholarships and hoping to get some, but you never know. And then the third one, relatives other than parents, any other sources provide funds to help pay for college. Well, if grandma and grandpa have, or a rich aunt, uncle, or something like that, are saying, hey, yeah, we might help out a little bit, maybe. Well, in my mind, that is not a definite, yes, I'm paying X for college for my nephew or for my niece, right? And so this is really kind of up to you how you want to volunteer this information on relatives other than parents helping to pay for college. I think it's perfectly justifiable to be like, well, we don't really know what the number is or if they're going to do it for sure. So realistically, we can put a zero in there. What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
Well, it's a tricky one, right? Let me just finish answering this. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
you
my
know,
feeling is if you know for sure, maybe grandma, grandpa said we're going to do X or whatever, maybe that's different. But if they've just
I mean, let's put it this way: you're very much on the honor code. You're very much on the honor code for this one.
Mhm.
Um, it's up to you. It's your level of comfort if you want to volunteer this information or not. But again, I'm jaded because I've been around the block a few times here, so I've seen some horror stories where families have said, "Well, grandparents said they're paying $20,000 a year for college, so they put $20,000 here." But the kid goes to a college that the grandparent didn't want them to go to. So guess what? They contributed zero. But guess what? They got no financial aid because they put that number there. And now those are some extreme cases, but I see a handful every single year. So that's why I'm kind of like jaded here. Unless you freaking know that money beyond a shadow of doubt is coming. Because I think a lot of grandparent contributions are like, hey, we're definitely contributing. We're thinking like $5,000 a year, and now's where the rubber meets the road, right? And we tell parents, well, you kind of gotta ask, like, what's the number, right? But anyways, if you're gonna miss, guys, you know the theme by now. We're gonna miss on the low side here, and
Yeah,
nothing is freaking guaranteed. And again, even some cases I've seen some heartbreaking cases where it's like
I was going to say that.
it was guaranteed. It was guaranteed. Like it was beyond a shadow of a doubt and whatever. I mean, you've seen them too. So
Yeah, tough that, and sometimes grandparents, they're living on fixed income and the market crashes and they say, sorry, can't help. So you never know. They're just tough
so this
times.
is the last thing I want you to share, Jason, because this is a
Sure.
really important one, but in I would say top three in terms of
Yeah.
CSS profile recommendations, and then I'm going to get to action items and next steps.
Yeah. So one of the very last things they're going to ask is, are there any special circumstances you want to share with the colleges? Change in employment, medical expenses, caring for an aging parent, these kinds of things. One of the options is none. And a lot of parents have the instinct like, I really want to tell them what's going on in my life so they can give us more financial aid. Our advice is to save that information for an appeal. Okay. So we would recommend putting none. And here's why. I mean, the simplistic version is if you tell them everything right now, and then they give you a financial aid award offer, and then you say, yeah, but I had all these circumstances. And then they're going to go, yeah, I know. We looked at it. We took that in consideration already. And then you have no grounds for appeal, right? Or at least you give up a lot of leverage there. So whereas if you put in none, and then you go through the appeal process, which is a super important part of the process, you can go, that's when you explain all your circumstances and you got some leverage using it. So it's a strategic move. It's what we recommend. Save all of that very, very important information for the appeal process.
Don't empty your clip here, guys. It is tempting as it is. Well, but we do have medical expenses. We do support a grandparent. We do, no, 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 no. But again, we're playing the game strategically in a way that's going to benefit us. And just again, we've been around the block. We have people that are a part of our team that say, if you want to maximize your odds of getting the best discount at our college, leave that blank, right? So just kind of take our word for it. Okay, next steps here, guys. And Jason, make sure you grabbed. If I think you have this link, but put this link in there. Put the.
Got it.
Our big thing is like I actually I didn't hammer it tonight as much as I have been recently. This action absorbs anxiety phrase that I've been latching onto. I've been boring my team with, but it's helped me kind of in my life. And I think, oh, there it is. Action absorbs anxiety. I mean, it's still there. But the takeaway is like for most people, it's like when we get anxious about something, I think a anecdote is to just take some action. Like, oh my God, when my to-do list is too big, like take some action or like literally take a friggin' walk. That's what helps me usually. Like move your body, like have some action. So when it comes to this, I'm like, just take some action. If you are a DIY person, set up your free MyCap account, okay? And better yet, treat yourself $5, $4.99, and have all of our resources. Put an unlimited number of colleges into our platform. Find out who's going to give you the most money. Have your line by line instructions, right? Go to your weekly office hours, your weekly member only workshops. If you're a DIYer, you know who you are. Okay. And take some action and just sign up for that tonight. You'll feel better just by doing that, right? It's a $5, like, okay, that's taking the temperature down a little bit. If you think you want some more help, we have our Wake Me Up When It's Over services, our cute little name. I coined that name, by the way, Jason. I don't like to
That's a
brag,
great name. I
but
love it.
but
Perfect.
that's book some time to talk with us. Okay. We only have for the class 2026, we're about close. We're almost closed for the season. We're taking on a few more families, but if you think you want some more, kind of hands-on help, talk to us. Use this link, book some time to talk with us. You have to sign up soon if you want to do it, but you can work with somebody one-on-one, unlimited amount of hours through the entire process. We do your FAFSA for you. We do your CSS profile for you. We negotiate directly with the colleges. We tell you which loan to take. We tell you when to use what resources. We make sure you're applying to competing schools. If you're not done with the admission stuff, we have resources there. So we have our kind of full list of packages here. I'll put that in there as well, but It should be on the link already, right? We're not cheap to work with if you work with us in a full on kind of wake me up when it's over capacity. Um, but if you want to learn, if it's a good fit for your family, book some time with us, please, and do it right now. Especially with 2026, you are at now or never time. You have a little bit more time if you're an underclassman. But book some time with us. You're going to talk to Jason. You're going to talk to Kevin Murphy on our team. You're going to talk to Dan Mag. You're going to talk to JP Schmidt. These are guys that have been doing this forever, that have just a ton of expertise. You'll figure out if it's the right fit for your family. And again, you can look at we're very transparent. Here's the pricing and services before you even go in there. And if you know you're a DIY person, right? You change your oil, you paint your fence, you do your backsplash in your kitchen, at least treat yourself with the $4.99. Like these are big investments. Like at least get our DIY help here. So, but do something, right? Don't take this information and just let be like float through. Like set up a free account at a minimum. Treat yourself to $5 if not. And then if you're like, I'm not really sure, that wake me up when it's over sounds interesting. Um, talk to us. If you know you want the wake me up when it's over, you can sign up and pay right through it tonight. Because again, we'll take another handful of families for class 2026, but we're almost closed for this year. I know Jason's closed. His book is full for this year outside of an hour. Like, if you're somebody that's like, I want a little bit more in DIY, but I don't want all of it, you can book an hour. You can book an hour with Jason, you know. So I think any parting words for you, Jason? Again, you've been on every side of this desk. Anything else that you?
Yeah, no, that's right. Absolutely. Even if you're a DIYer, you got amazing resources through MyCap. Um, I've seen some parents that start off DIYers and then they get into CSS profile. They're like, oh, what am I doing? Heck with this, and then reach back out. That's okay. Come, reach out. We're happy to help you. But yeah, if some parents, this it's complicated stuff. It's the other thing is, just the time and the stress, but you want to make sure you're getting it right, not making any mistakes, not overlooking any opportunities. Having a set of expert eyes on the whole situation can be really valuable and helpful. So, if that interests you, reach out. We'd be happy to talk with you all about it and see if we can help you.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a decent amount at stake here, and the way that I look at it is like, I think for most, we charge 299 an hour, $300 an hour, essentially. For our members, if you sign up for our, good question, if you're in the club, right? If you sign up as a premium member, right, for $4.99 a month, $4.99 a month, you automatically get $50 off for hours. You automatically get $500 off for any Wake Me comprehensive packages. So usually a great order of operations is start getting the club for $5, and then if you want to book an hour, you get $50 off. If you want comprehensive services, you get $500 off. But hopefully, our kind of goal is we know everybody's on a different end of the spectrum here. We want to meet you where you are, but do something. Um, yeah, and I think that's it, right? But what I was gonna say earlier is that I talked to so many parents who are like, oh man, my kids work their ass off. They put themselves in a great position. I want to hold up my end of the bargain. We want to help you do that, right? That's kind of part of our obligation here. So, Jason, appreciate your
Sure.
brother, Dr. J, the dean that spills the beans. We're lucky to have you. We'll see you out there again. Thanks for all the great questions. And again, we had hold on, let me see. I can do the actual number. We had a 300, wow, about 250 questions tonight. And again, somebody's who required the FAFSA, who required the CSS profile. It's all in your MyCap account, right? All of that. I promise you, we were not ignoring you or trying to blow you off if we didn't answer your question or we said book some time with us. Um, like I said, we're outgunned tonight, but appreciate all the great engagement. Keep following along with us, right? If nothing else, if you're like, I can't take any action tonight. I don't know what to do. That's okay too. But at least keep following along with us. We will get you there. So, Dr. J, we'll see
Yeah,
you.
appreciate that. Take
Appreciate
care.
it. Good night, everybody.